Today, we'll talk about how to make a simple daily reward system. You can claim the reward by touching the chest, and you'll receive 100 money from it. It works as intended. When you rejoin the game, it's saved, so you can't collect the reward again, only after 24 hours. So let's begin scripting. But before we begin scripting, I have a pre-made chest for this project. I'll add a link in the description if you'd like to use it. It includes two UIs for the chest, one when it's ready and one for cooldown, a highlight, and even a sound effect. We'll be using this chest for the rest of the tutorial, so now it's time to actually start scripting. The first step is to create a script in Server Script Service called Player Handler. This script will manage the player's money and handle saving it. I'll quickly add the base variables and set up the money data store. When the player joins, a leader stats folder with a money value will be added, and then their saved money will be loaded from the data store. The last step is just to add the function that saves the player's money when they leave the game. Also, since we're using data stores, make sure API services are enabled. First, publish your game. Then go to Home, Game Settings, Security, and ensure that Enable API Services is turned on. Back to the scripting part, I've added two parts to test the money system we just created, and it looks like everything is working properly. I'll also include these parts as a separate downloadable asset in the description, since we'll be using several of them throughout this video. I'll add an events folder in replicated storage, and inside it, I'll create a daily reward event remote event. Then, in replicated first, I'll add a local script named client DR, short for client daily reward. With that set up, we can begin scripting the client side of the daily reward system. First, I declare the Roblox services that will be used, followed by other elements like the events and the chest itself. I also create a touch-allowed Boolean to control whether the chest can be interacted with. When the onClient event is triggered, the function receives the diff time value, which represents the remaining cooldown time in seconds until the chest can be opened again. It then converts this value into hours and minutes using the method below. I recommend simply copying it, as it works reliably. The script also checks if diff time is less than or equal to 60 seconds. If so, it sets the minutes to 1 to avoid displaying something like 0000. Additionally, if the minutes or hours are less than 10, it adds a leading 0 to keep the format clean. For example, instead of showing 72, it will display as 0702. The next step is to check if diff time is greater than 0. If it is, I update the cooldown UI's time label to show the remaining time. I'll also create a function called chest state to easily toggle the chest state between ready and cooldown. The chest state function checks the value of state. If it's true, it enables the ready UI and the chest's highlight, sets touch allowed to true, and disables the cooldown UI. If state is false, it does the opposite. Finally, I call the chest state function inside the onClient event to update the UI and interaction state based on diff time. Moving on, we need to detect when the chest is touched. When a touch is detected, we use the hit variable to check whether the object that touched the chest belongs to a player. First, we create a hit player variable and set it to nil. Then we check if the hit.parent contains a humanoid and if that humanoid's health is greater than 0. If both conditions are true, we know that hit.parent is a character. From there, we use player's getPlayer from character to get the corresponding player and assign it to hit player. Next, we check 3 conditions. Whether hit player exists, touch allowed is true, and hit player is equal to the local player. This ensures that the chest is being touched by the local player and that it's currently interactable. If all conditions are met, we call chest state, false, to toggle the chest into cooldown mode, fire the daily reward event, and pass in the player, which is crucial for the server-side logic, as you'll see later, play the sound effect, and update the cooldown UI's time label to show the time 23 hours, 59 minutes. I quickly added a few extra test parts to verify the client DR script I just wrote, and everything works as expected. The cooldown time is displayed correctly, and once it reaches 0, the chest becomes claimable. However, the player doesn't receive the 100 money reward yet. This is because the server-side daily reward handler hasn't been implemented yet. That script will be responsible for actually granting the reward to the player. The next step is to create a new script in Server Script Service and name it Server DR, short for Server Daily Reward. This script will handle the final part of the daily reward system, so let's begin scripting. First, I declare the necessary Roblox services, followed by the daily rewards data store, the relevant events, and a constant representing the number of seconds in a day. When a player joins the game, we use getAsync with their user ID to retrieve any previously saved daily reward data. This value is stored in a variable named lastJoin. If no data is found, meaning lastJoin is nil, we know it's the player's first time joining. In that case, we enable the chest so they can immediately claim their first reward. The lastJoin value is saved using os.time, which returns the number of seconds that have passed since the Unix epoch, January 1st, 1970. For example, it might return something like 1747 and on, basically a long number representing the exact current time in seconds. If a lastJoin value exists, we use os.difftime to calculate how much time has passed since the last claim. For instance, it might return something like 89 if 89 seconds have passed. If this value exceeds the number of seconds in a day, the chest is enabled again and the player can claim the reward. If it hasn't been a full day yet, we calculate the remaining cooldown time by subtracting diff time from the total seconds in a day. This remaining time is then sent to the specific player's client, not all players, so their game can update the chest state and UI correctly. When the daily reward event .onServer event is triggered, we award the player, passed in through the event, 100 money. Then we update the player's record in the daily rewards data store by setting it to the current os.time, marking the moment they claimed the reward. And as you can see, it works. Upon rejoining, I can't claim the reward again since it's already been claimed. However, there's one thing missing. While in the game, the timer above the chest doesn't update in real time, it only refreshes when I rejoin. So let's fix that by adding some more code. The final step is to create a loop that runs every 60 seconds. In this loop, we retrieve all players currently in the game using players.getChildren. For each player, we fetch their last saved data from the daily rewards data store and store it in a variable called lastJoin. We then calculate the elapsed time, diff time, using os.difftime. If diff time is greater than the number of seconds in a day, we enable the chest, making it claimable. Otherwise, we calculate the remaining cooldown by subtracting diff time from the total number of seconds in a day and send this value to the player's client. This logic is essentially the same as what happens when a player first joins the game. And with that, the daily reward system is complete. Now let's test it to ensure everything works as expected. I've sped up the video a bit so you don't have to wait around. And as you can see, the chest timer works perfectly. The system is fully functional. Even in testing mode with multiple players, everything runs as it should. Each player can only claim their own chest and their timers are independent, counting down separately based on when they last claimed the reward. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something new from this video. If you found it helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really means a lot to a small channel like mine.